While too many Democrats are not doing the difficult work of getting out there and communicating what should be done, what can be done, what is being done right now by Donald Trump and the ways to combat him, we have a few who are. Elizabeth Warren is one. She was on CNBC. I talked about her appearance on Colbert earlier in the week. I think yesterday I talked about it. And she was on MSN or CNBC as well. And listen, we have a media ecosystem in this country that does its best to make excuses for Donald Trump and try to paint the the legislative branch, the co-equal branch of government as the ones who are throwing up roadblocks to progress. And there's this Sarah Eisen from CNBC in this clip who really tries to stymie the efforts of communication of Elizabeth Warren here, who's really just saying, look, we're a co-equal branch of government. Actually, we have the power in this tariff negotiation space, and we need to take it back. And the Sarah Eisen is complaining about Elizabeth Warren pointing out the corruption that we're currently facing. I got that clip. And then another where she puts it plainly, flatly, just brilliantly, with so much simplicity, Elizabeth Warren saying that this is just Constitution 101. First, though, we'll get to the corruption element of Donald Trump and his tariff chaos that he's put us in.
The corruption. And yes. On the corrupt, what evidence are you pointing to that this is a corrupt policy?
Well, he, right out in front, announces a tariff policy, says there are going to be no exceptions to that policy, and then he says, I talked to Tim Cook. Oh, really?
Shouldn't he be talking to the companies that it affects?
Well, then he follows it up by saying, and all of a sudden, great deal available for Tim Cook. Tim Cook, who, by the way, put $1 million.
It's a great deal available for Americans who have to buy iPhones.
No, it is a great deal for one company. But how many of the competitors now get hurt? In fact, I'd like to know what else goes on in this deal. Is it that Tim Cook and his interests get protection, but any of his competitors, I don't know, do they get a higher interest rate? What happens to them?
How is it that hard to understand the stakes here? You're a financial reporter for CNBC. It's a great deal for Americans who want to buy an iPhone. What about the competition element of this? What about the free market? This is Donald Trump corruptly putting his thumb on the scale. First of all, creating chaos where none needed to be, and then trying to reverse course and then selectively choose companies and or industries who are then exempt without the advice and consent of Congress, without participation of a co-equal branch of government because of his emergency declaration, his nonsense. And that's where we get to the second clip where Elizabeth Warren does the educating that someone needs to do about Constitution 101.
The question is, a handful of Republicans are just going to have to make the decision. Are they here to bend over to whatever Donald Trump wants to do, no matter what it's doing to the markets, no matter how much? Listen to Jerome Powell. It's driving up costs for American families. It's going to drive up unemployment. It's going to wipe out small businesses. Or is your job to stand up for this country? And that's the question.
You were not going to get the votes. You're not going to get the votes.
We got it in the trade war with Canada.
Right.
It was the first crack in the wall.
McConnell.
We got 4 Republicans who crossed the aisle that gave us a majority.
But it ultimately doesn't matter.
What do you mean it ultimately doesn't matter? This is the law. I'm
because
still
it didn't
kind of
change
Constitution
his policy.
101.
No, but he has the authority, ultimately.
Well, no, he does not. That's the whole point. He does not have the authority if Congress does not let him keep this authority. We can take this away.
Yeah.
He has declared an emergency. That's what gives him the authority. Otherwise, it belongs to Congress.
Little pro tip to Sarah Eisen. If you don't know what you're talking about, maybe shut the f*** up. Let the experts speak. Let Elizabeth Warren elucidate how the government works and a co-equal branch that was set up by the founders. How about that? How about that? Now, Elizabeth Warren talked a little bit about Jerome Powell. Listen to Jerome Powell. You would think that financial experts, financial journalists, people who are supposed to be expert in this field, that they would want to listen to Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve. because of the market crash and Donald Trump flirting with firing him, which would absolutely cause the markets to do what they did last week or in the last 2 weeks, which is just crater under the weight of the idiocy of Donald Trump. And that is the next clip that Elizabeth Warren gets into explaining to these panel of subject matter experts. Heavy, heavy air quotes there.
If Chairman Powell can be fired by the President of the United States, it will crash the markets in the United States. The infrastructure that keeps this stock market strong, and therefore a big part of our economy strong, and therefore a big part of the world economy strong, is the idea that the big pieces move independent of the politics, that somebody is making his, their, her best decisions economically and independently. If we understand that if the New York Stock Exchange, if interest rates in the United States are subject to a president who just wants to wave his magic wand, this doesn't distinguish us then from any other two-bit dictatorship around the world where everyone knows what your big investment risk is. Will that dictator wake up in the morning and have a tummy ache and decide to cause this problem or favor that friend? That's why we need to strengthen the infrastructure.
But I know.
In other words, stability is what the markets seek. And Donald Trump brings anything but stability. To say that he brings instability is underselling the proposition here. We need more politicians, political leaders, subject matter experts like Elizabeth Warren to be speaking out and talking about clawing back the power of their co-equal branch. Congress isn't an afterthought in these matters. We have 3 branches of government. All of them are equal, despite what dictator wannabe Donald Trump thinks and says. Anyway, this stories like this need to be spread far and wide. I hope you will do that. You can share this video. You can also comment below. I would appreciate that very much. Call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily at dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you very much. Thanks for your engagement. Thanks for your activism and your organizing to make our country, and by extension, I believe the world, a better place. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another.